Montgomery, but we need to pay closer attention to what's going on in our community. Look at how we as individuals can contribute to the growth of the community, the understanding of the community, and how we can help build that kind of legacy we want to leave for our kids. So tonight is just one attempt in understanding others' cultures and getting them to us to work alongside them a little better. So tonight, Dr. Brolin is going to moderate this conversation. I want to introduce you to Dr. Brolin, my co-facilitating person.
Thank you, Ms. Glenda, and thank you all for coming. I see some faces in the audience tonight who are here for our first conversation. So we appreciate it that you are joining with us for these summer conversations about being a child of Brown in the Topeka community. What we are doing is a series of events leading up to the 70th anniversary, May 17th of 2024. And so each month, please be watching for activities that will be going on. They won't always be in the form of a forum, but they may be community-related activities. So if you see a Facebook post, please share it. We're glad that you all are here tonight. The people who are supposed to be here are here, but we do hope that you'll spread the word so that others can join us as well in the future. So our conversation tonight is on the topic of race and culture, crossing boundaries. And tonight we're going to also examine social reflections that are offered by Glenn Singleton. He's the author of the book, Courageous Conversations About Race. And some of us in this room are very familiar with that book. Mr. Singleton is a nationally recognized academician whose race-focused work has been used to train educators and business leaders since 1992. And his work continues because there is much work yet to be done. So hence our conversation tonight is relevant as we reflect on the 70 years which have passed since the Brown v. Board decision in 1954. So to begin our conversation, he says, arguably, great divisions exist between racial groups in the United States because we lack understanding that each group possesses a unique racial perspective, and we struggle to empathize with the racial other's unique racial experience. End quote. So therefore tonight we are seeking to understand and to empathize with each other's unique racial experiences so that we can begin to bridge divisions, all right? All right, so I'd first like to begin by introducing our esteemed panelists. We thank them for joining us, and we do have one who will be joining us shortly. But we're going to begin to introduce to you Ms. Gail Depew Cheatham, and if I misspelled your name, please, or mispronounced your name, please forgive me. And we're going to give you a minute to greet us in just a moment. We'll also want to introduce Ms. Regina Platt of Topeka, very well-known local activist, and just a busy person all the way around. And then finally, Mr. Israel Sanchez. So we'll begin down on this end and let you each introduce yourself to our group who have gathered here tonight.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah. My name is Gail Cheatham, Cheatham, my maiden name. I am a member of the Kikuyu tribe in Northeast Kansas. We go up 70 highway to about 820, illegal casino. Some people identify there as the landmarks. I was born and raised in Atchison, Kansas. My mom was born on a reservation. My dad was born in Portland. I've traveled pretty much all over the United States. There's only 2 states I haven't visited. That's Hawaii and Alaska, which I'd like to. I'm married, I have 3 grandchildren, 6 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandnelder. I currently work at the PBVA, and I love my veterans and I love my community, and I love Native American people. And that's what I know.
And I go by my term. My name is Regina Platt. I am a child of God, a mother, a friend, a community activist. But I am a bridge that brings every person forward to be able to see themselves and receive themselves, but understand that others may not want to know you, but it's your job to flow in the spaces you are given opportunity to. So I'm the stepologist. That's what I just call it nicely, the stepologist. I currently serve at the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice as a restorative justice and mediation coordinator. And so I build programs within the school, building those bridges to break down the boundaries of seeking restorative justice only through the eyes of the criminal justice system. Restorative justice is the umbrella. And within that, there's mediation. Within that, there's advocacy and social emotional development. Within that, there's training of staff. Within that, there's that bridging and giving victims voice, and not only victims, but doing the work with those who have done the harm as well. And so I'm simply the stepologist.
My name is Isabel Sanchez. I'm originally from Havana, Cuba, and I grew up in Miami for one part of my life, and then I moved up here to Kansas about 12 years ago now. So this is my home now. I have 2 kids here, and I'm a writer, a thinker, and I'm also a storyteller. So I would like to use my skill set to connect people and to tell the stories, no matter where they're from and how they see themselves, and find the universal themes when it comes to our individuality, right? We all think we're so different, but in reality, we're a lot alike. Our fears and our struggles and our hopes and dreams, that's kind of what I try doing in our free time. But my day job, I'm here to be a partnership as an account manager.
Thank you each so much. And then when our other panelist is able to join us, we'll pause and allow her to introduce herself to you as well. All right, so as we begin our conversation, and I'm just gonna set this up here, in case you're not familiar with the book, it may be something you wanna Google. If you have a book club or a group in your employment setting that you think might need to be able to talk about these types of things, this is a reference that I would recommend. All right, so before our first 2 questions, I'm going to post something that Lynn Singleton has written. He said, to develop a fuller understanding of race, we must first look deeply and introspectively at our own racial existence as a doorway to understanding the complexities of race in America. So these first 2 questions are for all of our panelists, and we can begin with whoever would like to begin, unless we want to begin down here with Ms. Cheatham. But question number 1, what is your backstory? And then question number 2, where do you find your voice?
Dr. New,
Yes,
can you use your mic? It's got more volume.
sure.
The first question was my backstory. So you heard a little bit about where I was born and raised. So I wasn't raised on the Kickapoo Reservation, but I was raised by my mom, who was very traditional. She was a member of the Drummond religion, and that was her heart. Growing up, I think we were like maybe 6 or 7. My mom's brother died. She couldn't understand that. She wasn't getting answers from how she was raised. So she prayed. She needed answers. And there was a knock on the door, and there were 2 lovely people, and they were Jehovah's Witnesses. They offered her a free home Bible study. So growing up after that, that's how we were raised until I was 15, and then I became a rebel. So my mom, she passed away about 9 years ago, and that was her religion, and she stayed with that until she passed away. I didn't. I went another path, have the utmost respect for all religions and cultures. So my upbringing was a little bit different than most of my Native American family, other, tribes. So That's kind of my backstory. So I knew my name. I was named, my Indian name was given right after I was brought home from the hospital to Piat Wadman. I know a little bit of Kickapoo, a little bit of Potawatomi. It's a very hard language. I have trouble talking. Even though I'm reading it in the dialect, it's pretty difficult, but I try. So I paid some things to learn that. So I remember going to the ceremonies, and I'm going to be going to one this weekend, and just I always was drawn toward that because that's how I was raised in the very beginning. So what I think what was it? My voice. So my voice has really been out of an upbringing. I think that there's been a lot of suffering growing up, and I think I am a defender and an advocate for those who don't have a voice. And I honestly don't remember when I found my voice. I think it was maybe when I was 14 or 15. And there was a traumatic event that happened in my life, and I just was like, that's it, I'm done. And from that point on, there was something that stirred inside of me, and that was it. Like, I was like no longer going to be a victim. I was going to be an advocate. And I remember thinking that, oh my God, because, the person getting picked on at school, I was right there, So I think that was really when I found my voice, and I've been a strong advocate ever since, especially for those, I think, that don't have a voice, children, maybe elderly people, maybe even my friends who are maybe in abusive relationships, or just people who are victims. And I learned that, and that's my voice. I've been a strong advocate ever since then.
So I am identified as a Black-bodied human being. I am a woman. My heritage comes from Dominican blood, Blackfoot Indian, and African diaspora. My parents were Southerners, father Mississippi, mother Memphis, Tennessee. I've moved all over the United States of America, and within a nation, I heard rain more over than I heard the opposite, that I was not enough, that I was broken, that I was too Black, that I was too thick, that I was too short, that my hair was too nappy. My voice came to me, and this is interconnected. My mother died from mistreatment, ill treatment of her body when I was about 18 months old, because she was not receiving proper health care. She was sick nearly her whole entire life. And the voice came actually like 6 years ago that I realized how powerful my voice was, because through a shadow message, enlightenment message, my mother said to me that you are the difference that makes the difference. Not only did she say that piece to me, she said, you're my living legacy. And beyond that point, I realized that the shadow message that was most powerful to me and most harmful to me in my life was when my mother died, right? I was supposedly not even old enough to understand. But when she died, to me, that gave me the message that I wasn't enough. And so every time I walk out in the community and someone made a comment about what I looked like, or somebody made a comment about how kinky my hair was, or somebody made a comment about how thick I was, it just reiterated that I am not enough. And when the bells went off and I realized who I was and why I was here, it was easy for me to step into places and give voice for those that were voiceless. It was easy for me to step into places and say, you can't tell me no, what you can tell me is how. And what that allowed me to do is when we stepped into 2020, I looked around the community, it was like, you can't sit no longer. And so you can't hold on to a job just because it is a job, because you were never created to have a job, you were created to work. And it's your responsibility to do a work that's gonna bridge the gap, that's gonna heal some people, that's gonna give life and light to some people. And so I would say to you, my voice was received for me when I realized there was more to me than what the reality of what the system had told me I would only be.
Thank you. So as far as my backstory goes, as I mentioned a little bit ago, I was born in Havana, Cuba. The way I left was unusual, especially back then. I left when I was 11. Both my parents stayed behind. And the reasons for that are kind of complicated. I don't want to take too much time, but I ended up leaving Cuba with my aunt, uncle, and 2 cousins of my great grandma who became like my mom over the years. So that separation was hard, especially at that age, and I didn't realize it until probably 3 years later. Especially now I have a daughter who's 11 and she's back there, and that's how old I was when I left. And writing about her, that's how I tell a lot of my stories, writing about her being 11, they reflect a lot of how young I was and all the things that I kind of put away in order to survive. And when you're an immigrant, especially first generation, right? And as a child, the adults around me didn't speak English at all. So I would have to become the translator and argue with the bill collector and have all those conversations that a child shouldn't have, or worries they should have as a child, but you have to because you have no choice, because you're the only one that can. So you have to grow up fast and you have to grow up quick. And so that's kind of where I come from. And from that heritage of hardworking people who are here for a better life, but also who make sacrifices, let it be ahead to have a better future. Eventually, I took a sponsor my mom about 12 years later when I was 23. And my dad stayed behind until literally 3 weeks ago. He left 3 weeks ago. Sarah, and I haven't seen him yet. I'll see him in Miami. So that's kind of the backstory. As far as my voice goes, I think a lot of it comes from my heritage. And when you are from the Caribbean, especially, I think, and the American country, you have a mix of conquistadors, colonizers, if you will, with slaves, right, and indigenous people. So my heritage is a mix. I recently did that DNA analysis just to learn more about my history, right? And there's a lot there. And I think my voice comes from just that amalgamation of stories of people who some came to colonize, some just wanted to survive together. And I'm here. So I speak from that experience. That's how my voice comes from.
We are going to, first of all, welcome and introduce Dr. Norma Juma, one of the most wonderful people in my world. It is so wonderful to see her with us this evening. And Dr. Juma, we're going to give you opportunity to, first of all, introduce yourself. And then I'm going to give you the 2 questions that these panelists have answered. So your timing has been perfect. But I do want to say we've heard some very poignant stories so far. And some of what has been shared may have stirred up some thoughts in your own mind, possibly related to your own backstory. So if you have questions that you'd like to ask, there will be opportunity for that. And also, if there's something that you'd like to share, we'll also have opportunity for that. So you might want to jot it down as we're going, just so you don't forget. So at this time, Dr. Norma Juma, please introduce yourself to us, and then I'll give you the 2 question prompts.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry to come in a little late. Just literally coming into the country from my summer vacation. My name's Norma Juma. I'm a professor at Washburn University. Born and bred in Kenya, in East Africa. School in Kenya till high school thereabouts, and completed my high school in India. Did my bachelor's, master's, in India. I went home, taught for 3 years, and then came to the United States. So I did my PhD at University of Texas, Arlington, and Topeka has been home since 2005.
Thank you, Dr. Juma. All right, so the first two questions that have been addressed are, what is your backstory? And then, where do you find your voice?
Wow. I knew the questions from Dr. Neal would be tough questions, so. What's my backstory? So I'll talk a little bit about my backstory. Born in Kenya to a lovely couple, Washington Atieno Juma and Elizabeth Atieno Juma. I'm the second born of 7 children. My parents were educators, so dad was a professor, mom was an educator poet, and she was everything. Businesswoman, administrator, church lady, mom, disciplinarian, she wore all the hats, but at the heart of it, she really was our North Star, our children. Robert's our children, even dad called his children. So growing up in Kenya, my dad was in education. You may ask, why did you have to leave the country in high school to go seek education elsewhere? But I guess because that was an education. He knew the industry well. So we all left, all the 7 of us left the country early. Why India? It is a British system, like Kenya, former colonies, former colonies of the English, so we have the same education system. Education is relatively affordable. So we don't love the scholarship. It's a place where students are concentrating on their studies in a timely manner. So that's why India. Where does my voice come from? Wow. From 1,000 different generations and from 1,000 different ways. My voice first comes from my ancestral home, where I was born and bred, where my parents grew up, where my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my parents rest. That's the first place my voice comes from. I know I can never feel the shoes that I dare walk in, but I echo their dreams. I live out their dreams, their aspirations. My voice also comes from the collective we, the African diaspora, we are the African continent, we, the people of the world, the human race. So my voice comes from those 1,000 different ways. And I define myself as a global citizen. I don't hold loyalty to one country because there's so many countries that created the leaders before. So I do honor Kenya, my birth country. I do honor India. I came of age and they literally created the person who sits before you. I do honor United States, my home of choice. I do honor Italy, they gave me the man of my life, the love of my life. I do honor Nigeria, his birthplace. So I really do speak from thousands of different voices.
Well, thank you all. So, another quote from Glenn Singleton is going to set the stage for our next set of 2 questions. He suggests we cannot talk about race collectively as a nation, family, or education system until we have individually talked about race in our own lives, personally, locally, and immediately. So panelists, whoever would like to tackle these next two questions, we will let you have the microphones. The first question is, how do you think people perceive persons of color? And the second companion question is, are we responsible for framing their perception? How do you think people perceive persons of color? And are we responsible for framing their perception? So who'd like to jump in on that?
Alvaro voices here, and Alvaro chairman of the bodies, and she said that she talked about the death of a single story. There is a way that we learn as the human race, and the way we distinguish the good people, the bad people, the different roles things play in our life is by categorizing them and simplifying the features of what we perceive. Unfortunately, we extend that simplistic way of looking at life into adulthood, and we use arguments to identify and understand complex issues, and that becomes a problem. Chairman is not the only one who's spoken about the danger of a single story. When somebody says Africa, close your eyes and just think of what comes to mind. Visualize what that means. Chances are you may be visualizing the Great Safari, the 5 big games. You may be visualizing starvation and the children with flies all around their faces. You may visualize poverty. Whatever you visualize, it's not wrong, but it's a single story. Africa is made of 54 different countries. There are 2,000 to 3,000 languages spoken in the continent. The people look very different, just as we are different in this room, as well we represent in the continent. And they have very different stories. But that's not what people visualize when they think of Africa. Are we responsible for it? In the yesteryears, I would say we are not, because we didn't tell our stories. But today, I say we have to increase the volume. We have to tell our stories. We have to shape the narrative of our continent, our people, and the diversity, the richness of the culture. That is to those who want to listen to the story. For those who shape their perception and they're not willing to learn and expand and be educated, it's not our responsibility.
Where you go next? I definitely agree. You know, from my perspective, growing up in Havana, in Cuba, myself and my family were considered white, right? Because of my complexion. But when you come to the United States, at least back when I first arrived in 1995, when you fill out the census or whatever it was, I was like only 11 years old. It didn't say Hispanic, it just said, it said either white, Hispanic, or black, right? That's all it said back in 30 years ago. I'm like, wait a minute, I was just white 3 hours ago. What is this Hispanic word? I've never heard it before. Right, so there's this shift that happens when you come to a different country and you're perceived differently from the way you perceive yourself. And it takes some time for you to kind of grow into that. In Miami, you're in a pocket where a lot of Cuban people live there, so you don't really feel it as much. Because a lot of people speak Spanish, a lot of people are Cuban, or from the Caribbean, so you're kind of in this bubble. That I don't think it's a good thing, to be honest. I think it's good to be versatile, get out and experience life in different places. And then you go to Topeka like I did, and it's kind of a culture shock in many ways. In more ways than one, but also with ethnicity and race. And the fact that even in Hispanic culture, Latino culture, it's colorism, and people don't talk about it a lot, but there's like, the whiter you are, the better you're treated in my country, the darker you are, the worse you're treated. That's reality in Hispanic countries, and even here in mixed families. And so those conversations need to be had definitely at home, but also in our own cultures, in our own communities, to confronting that, hey, we're more alike than we're different. And are we responsible for the shaping of that? I think to some degree, if we don't do it, somebody else will tell the story for us. It's kind of what you were saying in a way. You have to be proactive and tell the story of who you are, because Latinx, Latinos, we're not a monolith, right? You can be Mexican, Cuban, from Venezuela, Peru, wherever. We have all those similarities, but we're not the same, right? We're not all the same. And people sometimes think, oh, you're Mexican. Oh, no, I'm not. I don't want to be Mexican, but I'm Cuban. There's a difference. And educating people about what that means, how that's different, and how we're alike also. It's part of the way I tell my stories. Like, I'm Cuban, so I'm from, it's what it means to be Cuban, but also part of the big story of like Latino and what that means.
So I'm gonna ask us some questions. Okay, questions are, how do you think people perceive persons of color, and are we responsible for framing their perception?
So we are a socialized species, right? And so everything, as Dr. Joan was saying, that we perceive to be good or we perceive to be bad was based off of what someone taught us. And so we are collective of what our ancestors poured into us. And so as we sit today in a place where we are carrying forward within our DNA this matter of brokenness and confusion. And so some things were chose for us, but just because they were chose for us don't mean we cannot change them. And Clint Smith identifies in his writings of how we connect to the lands and the things that happen upon the lands of this nation, and how we try to change them up and we take down a flag or we take down a statue, but the blood that was spilled on that land still screams forth unless we do a change. Just because the statue was removed or the flag was removed does not mean the pain was still not lived there, or the ancestors that were impacted by that still do not have grandchildren and great-grandchildren who know those stories. And if those stories were hidden from them, right? If those stories were hidden from them, we know by studies that have been done that the body keeps score. And so the body is carrying forth these things, and you see behaviors that are happening, and you believe you did all the work for the change to happen, but it took this many generations for us to get to a point where we can sit in a city and believe that we got it all together while we're still surrounded by brokenness, right? So now, is it our responsibility? In firmness, I would say it's not only our responsibility, but it's the responsibility of these systems that were created by colonizers to hinder us and to box us in. It's our responsibility to use our voices, not only our voices, but our creativity, and to pour into our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, because right now I still see that we're teaching them through a box of limitations, like they're going to be going to work in warehouses when they're creating AI to take those jobs within the warehouses. And so if we don't teach them to take up arms with their voices and to take up arms with their creativity and do the things, identify that which they were called to do, we're gonna lose.
So just a little bit of historical perspective on Native Americans. We currently have 574 federally recognized tribes. And then we currently have 63 state recognized tribes. So Native Americans, we are defined by federal law via treaties. We have a treaties, each one of those federally recognized tribes, they have a treaties with the United States government. And then the tribes, they have their enrollment for their tribal members. So we're defined by federal law, we're defined by our tribe, and then some of us even have, like my tribe, we have treaties with Mexico, because way back in the day, our people went all the way to Mexico, and they preserved the language, the culture, and the traditions. So we have, dual, triple citizenship. So, and when you have that many, and you're scattered all over, you lost your traditions. I mean, way back in the day, you lost your language. And I think a lot of tribes, like my tribe, thank God, there are people who were raised traditionally, raised with that language, and raised with those traditions today that they preserve them. Thank God for me, because I wasn't raised that way. I'm learning it now, and I'm a slow learner. So, and I think that, so Native people, or just people of color, it depends on how we were raised. So I have a different perspective when it comes to race. Like, I was born and raised in Atchison, and I had white friends, black friends, Hispanic friends, Asian, and I was kind of just, a little kid growing up. And I didn't realize what racism was until I was in the 6th grade. And some of you may have remembered this. There was that riot that happened in Atchison at the high school. And it was, I happened to be at the dentist, thank God. People really got hurt. That's when they had little pop bottle machines, and they, people really got hurt that day. So we had law enforcement, walking us to school. We were the little bitty kids. We were so scared. I remember being scared to death. So I wasn't on the white side. I wasn't on my black friend's side. I wasn't on anybody's side. We were my friends, because I wasn't raised to see color. When I moved to Portland, I thought I had stepped back in time. I didn't know what racism was or how people perceived Native people until I moved there. And I couldn't believe it. Like, I thought, okay, this is what everybody's talking about. It's coming in the 8th grade, and that perception of the local people in there of how I was supposed to behave and how I was supposed to talk. And this, this perception that this expectation of me coming into the school, like I wasn't supposed to have a voice, I wasn't supposed to be asking questions. Like I remember when a teacher looked at me over her glasses, and I was like, "What are you looking at me like that for? I'm asking a question for clarification." So, and I do. I think that it depends on where you live. When there's heavily populated areas for Native American people, it's still there. That perception is still there. Even in the community, I can remember even family members like, "Be quiet. Why are you doing that? Don't do that." So and I forgot what the second question was. Are we responsible? Are we responsible? I'm 60 years old, and I worked really hard to try to sit on different panels and educate people, because we know our education system, and my daughter, thank God she's a school teacher in Kansas City, she's shaping those little kids' mind and giving them good education, current education, right education, inviting speakers into her 5th grade to this, the textbooks say this, that this is really, here's somebody who lived it. Here's somebody who lived that, giving them a current perception of just what's going on. I think we have to get out of our mind, and I see some of my relatives, they're, maybe they haven't left a certain area, or even friends in other states haven't left their area, and they're stepping out of that. So we do. I think individually we have a responsibility, and I have made it a mission and a point to educate people, because if they don't know, they're just going to keep saying, they're going to keep thinking the same thing. And it's organizations like this, it's panel speakers, it's people that come and they listen and they ask questions. That's how we change the narrative, because it doesn't have to remain that way. And sometimes we have to really use our voice, that powerful voice that each one of us has. Like, that isn't right. That's not right. Because I remember being in 8th grade and I was asking a question, and I had those crazy guys looking at me. And then when my kids went to school, boy, how do they need that? You better not be acting wild like they were when I was in school, because we hopefully have educated you enough to kind of pull yourself together.
Thank you each so much. We have heard some rich cultural information, so we appreciate what you have shared. And as Regina was sharing, we are honored to have with us Dwayne Berman. He has something that he's going to share with us when this session is over, but we hope you'll stay around to hear it, because it relates directly to what she was talking about, the sharing of stories from those who have experienced dislocation during slavery. All right, now we're going to move on to our next set of questions. And I'm going to tell you, this is a long quote alert, but Glenn Singleton, he touches on some critical race points that I think are very relevant to our discussion tonight. He says, simply put, racial discomfort is heightened when racially dominant people of lesser consciousness are required to interact with racially targeted or oppressed people of greater consciousness in circumstances in which the racially dominant, or white people, possess greater power and authority, or have a high level of confidence in their own ill-formed racial beliefs. Okay. So, this is open to any of the panelists, unless all of you would like to share on these two questions. Code switching, assimilation, and masking. What do these mean to you? And then the second question, what would you like for people to know about you and your cultural community? So again, code switching, assimilation, and masking, what do these mean to you? And then what would you like for people to know about you and your cultural community? It's like Ms. Regina, they kick us off. Right.
So first off, I want to just say, I don't got room for it no more, right? So in all those areas, I am tired of when I walk into a place, I'm judged by how my hair looks. I'm tired of my shape being judged. I'm tired of my voice being judged. I'm tired. There's no reason that I should have to explain to a 7-year-old that she light skinned, not white. That I'm tired of it. And so what I'm saying to you is, there are things that we all have learned because we grew up in systems. And if I'm too bold, I'm acting mannish, or I want to take over the room, right? All these little things. But I'm me. And I think that's the issue where our society, we are putting labels on people. Don't put labels, just because I'm black don't mean I like all black food. I do, though. Y'all see me. I do, though. But I like Spanish food, I like Italian, I like all kind of food. I eat Cuban, I'm half there with you. I like Indian food. But what I'm saying to you is, it starts with us. We each gotta stop. Like we're saying we're cracking jokes, or It's the norm. It's not normal when someone walks in and you analyze them based off of what you perceive them to be, based off of their color or based off of their hair type. Stop. Stop. Just because she got blonde hair or he got blonde, stop. And so that's why I said, just first off, let's throw that away. Now, does it really happen? It happens every day. I worked on a job where I was supposed to be taking a stand and standing up for racial justice. And within that system, there was brokenness. Because you've done the study of the words, doesn't mean you understand the experiences that people go through. And so we were setting up these classes and we were trying to be nice. I call that sweet nasty, right? And so you're teaching them about microaggressions, but they ain't never experienced a microaggression.
Okay.
So we're being sweet nasty, right? And then you don't want me to tell the truth or give them experiences when I'm teaching them, but I can't facilitate something to them unless they experience it and feelings arise in them to connect them to what they're learning. And so it's sweet nasty. So we're supposed to be teaching healing through a system of brokenness. And those that are being touched by those same systems that we're going in and we're teaching majority white body individuals, all these systems all over line set up. The Black bodies don't even understand what those things are happening to them. So white bodies are going, you didn't realize that was happening? Just, you don't understand what's happening to your people? Again, oppression. Because now you're using it as a tool to say, I know more than you. So the next question, because I'll be messing up, don't
I think you actually covered it. It was, what would you like for people to know about you and your cultural community? And I think you did.
Thank you. Just stop. Just stop. Let me be me. Strangers can be. Stop.
I think she did a fabulous job.
You got
take
it.
the second part. So I currently work at the Topeka VA, and I currently the chair of we're now the IDEA, formerly EEO committee, with my partner there last year, see him. And we had a training at the beginning of the month, or was it last month? We had a training, and we went to Leavenworth. And one of the things I did when we first started the meeting, because we were talking, and it makes people uncomfortable, but we do it in our community. So we had everybody get in a circle, and you should have seen them, all my people, they were like, what are we doing up here? What's going on? And I said, look to your left and grab that person's hand and like aghast, and then go to your right and hold that person's hand. And you could tell, I mean, it makes people very uncomfortable. We did this exercise. I was in DC for 2 years. I was at EPA headquarters. I was at the Office of Environmental Justice. I was also at Health and Human Service, SAMHSA, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services. And we did this when we had our Native American Heritage Month in November with secretaries of these different departments and Native American culture. We would do a round dance. And I said, just sit with that. Sit with that. You know, don't think about race or color or, you know, male, female, just sit with that. And it's a very uncomfortable when you don't know who's you're doing that. For me, it's like, it's just part of it's part of my heritage. Like I don't have no problem hugging people or grabbing their hand when I see somebody in distress. And it was a good exercise. It left people with kind of like, you know, this is part of our culture. This is part of like my culture. So what I just want people to know that, and we ourselves, like Native American people too, I'm sorry, we have reverse discrimination in my tribe with our people. We are just as judgy of maybe of another tribe. There's jokes. I said, oh, you got jokes, do you? I've been talking wild about another tribe. So we're just as bad. I mean, I think that we've been suppressed, and we've had problems. You know, we were assimilated to different states. We were moved from our area. We're from the Michigan area, moved all over. We have people that are Illinois, our tribes are in Kansas, we have a tribe in Oklahoma, one in Texas, and our people left and they went straight to Mexico. And we are, I'll look at it, I'm seeing it, they are being just as, what was happening to us as people, we're now imposing those, I've seen it, I'm living it right now, seeing those same oppressions to your own people. So that's one thing I know we have to work on as a Native people, is not to impose those, not to become like, the federal government took your lands. Now we're gonna impose those same sanctions on our own people. So we have to get out of it. It's interesting, like when my family gets together, because you're gonna see a rainbow coalition of people. You're gonna see Hispanics, you're gonna see Blacks, you're gonna see Asians. My cousins have red hair. They are really light complected and hazel eyes. And then I have other people that are like, we're all first cousins. So I think just getting groups like this, asking those hard questions and not being afraid of the answer.
I do want to talk about assimilation and wearing masks. I think when you're an immigrant, you're expected to assimilate rather quickly. If you want to be a good immigrant, you have to forget your language, you have to forget your culture, you have to do things this way. You have to celebrate this holiday, not that holiday. And it's not always really overt all the time. I think there's systems that reward the fact that you are that you don't have an accent when you speak. You get treated a little differently than somebody who has a thicker accent. And my kids are just like, so I can say this, that I feel kind of ashamed. I'm going to change that, the fact that they don't speak Spanish at all. And why? Because when I first came here, I didn't speak at all, right? So having an accent was a problem, a thick accent back then, and not learning English fast enough was a problem for me, that it really stayed with me, that I didn't want them to have to go to school even though they were born here, right? But still, you carry all this stuff with you. I don't want them to go through that experience with people for that reason, having to fight somebody like I did for that reason over and over again. So now I'm learning Spanish, I am teaching slowly, but I wish I learned it. I wish I had learned that lesson that I'm learning now, recently, to not try to fit in that box. That it's okay to be who you are. And I am Cuban, but I'm also American. And that's okay to be both things, right? You don't have to be one or the other. And so it took me a while to learn that. And that goes along with the mask, right? You have to present this mask. And then we all, to some extent, you have to be a certain way at work, in a certain way. But when it comes to your identity and culture, you shouldn't have to hide who you are. You shouldn't have to hide what makes you proud, why you're going to be Cuban, for example. I don't know what the second question was, sorry.
Oh, second question. What would you like for people to know about you and your cultural community?
Yeah, and I think I've said it already in a different way, but I think being able to know that we're all different. Like I said earlier, that I'm monolith, right? We're Cubans are different from Dominicans and Koreans in so many ways. Our food are different. People ask me, "Do you love spicy food?" I hate spicy food. I don't love spicy food. So it's just little things like that. Like, doesn't mean you're upset or anything, but it's just the fact that people look at you a certain way and expect you to be exactly the same as everybody else. And we all know that's not true. But I think just the fact that each person has their own story and their cultural background, it's important to them. And maybe just ask the question instead of making an assumption. I know that goes for me as well, I think we all should be better at that.
Well, this is kind of a loaded question. I'll try to break it down into three things. Colorism. We've talked across the panelists here about being in a family with people with different complexion, and the lighter you are, the better you're treated, the darker you are, the worse you're treated. We've talked about a little bit about the oppression that you experience as a community, then you transfer that same pattern of oppression to your people. When I was listening to my fellow panelists, I said, we are human beings, bottom line. I saw that in India. I've seen it among my African people in Africa. I've seen it among my African American community in America. And today I hear the same story about the Native Americans. When you go to places like Africa and India, we have lighting cribs. Back in the day, they even had mercury in those cribs. If you know anything about mercury, that's the first thing that would cause cancer. People would risk that to have fair skin. And as they age, after using those chemicals in your body, your skin is burnt up and you look real bad because you start having patch marks all over your body. But why did they do it? Because they gave them currency to be fed. Think about that. And within the same family, I'm talking about Black family, the fair-skinned individuals are given better treatment or thought of as being prettier than the dark skin. Right? And it so happened that the caste system in India, the Sudras, are really dark, the darker than I. And by the caste system, they're the lowest. They're the scavengers. They are the, they do the least of work in the community. So there's that. Where did we learn that? Where did we learn that being a color that God created is less than? The other thing that I wanted to touch on is the way we treat each other in our community and the pattern of oppression. You may have heard some stories that African Americans and the Africans from the continent don't get along. You may have not. And the Africans from the African continent think that they're better. But where did they learn that? They come here before we learn the history, before we learn who our brothers are, we start thinking we're better than them. Not understanding that the opportunities we get is off the back of those African Americans. The struggles they went through, the freedoms that they fought for. That's what afforded me the opportunity to do my PhD at University of Texas at Arlington. I would not have walked into that opportunity if the ones who went before me did not win those battles. But we dare come in and we dare think that we're better than, because somebody created that path for us. Then the third thing I want to talk about is the mask that we wear. Somebody told me, the longer you stay American, the lighter your accent will be, and you soon speak just like one of us. And that person was sitting in a place of authority. And I looked at him and I told him, so, with all due respect, I will always be a teacher, whether at this institution or any another institution. But I am born Black. I am born Luo. I'm born Kenyan. I'm born African. And I will always have an accent. Don't dare tell me to speak different. I waited for this guy to call. in debt. So I probably say, this is my answer, yes, to that.
Okay. Dr. Jim, that is an amen for me. Panelists, thank you all. You have done an outstanding job. We are down to our last question. One more to go. Yes, definitely they deserve applause, but we'll say that. All right, so both racial consciousness and racial unconsciousness are defined as the degree at which we believe that our race impacts our lives. Racial consciousness and racial unconsciousness are defined both as the degree at which we believe that our race impacts our lives. So Glenn Singleton writes, we need to challenge our racial unconsciousness in the conversation to reach a greater understanding of race in our own lives. So our last two questions, and any panelists, you're welcome, but I just love how each of you are sharing. We have something unique to share, but it's creating a beautiful tapestry. So the first part of the question is, can you describe a time when you felt like an invisible minority within a group based on your gender or your nationality? You felt like an invisible minority within a group based on your gender or your nationality. And how did you resolve that feeling? And then the final question is, what stereotypes anger you most? Whoever would like to begin. Time when you felt like you were an invisible minority within a group, either based on your gender or your nationality, and how did you resolve that feeling? And then what stereotypes anger you the most?
Okay, we're ready.
We're over here really writing with the question, so we don't. So can I describe a time when I felt invisible, either based on my gender or nationality? Yes, at Washburn. So we had a meeting. It was a student body. This was several years ago, and we had one of the state representatives there, and I had asked a question. He was a candidate for the governor. And I don't remember when this was, maybe Graves. I can't remember who the governor was. But I had asked a question, when he got into office, what was his intent for the tribes? Had he thought about the relationship that he would have on the decisions that he's making, or has he reached out to the tribes? It was a 3 or 4 part question that I had asked him, and I could tell it stumped him. He was stumbling around with his answer because obviously he hadn't thought about it. You're going to go into government. Well, guess what? They're your neighbors, so and you've got treaties, whatnot. And so, don't let it be an afterthought, and don't let somebody like me put you on the spot and you can't put you forward. And he stumbled with his answer. So later on, I went up and literally stood there to ask him a question and wouldn't even give me the time of day. And the other little groups that brought him in. And I just stood there. And I was waiting for an opportunity, and they would not, like I didn't exist. And I touched both of their shoulders, and I said, I'm going to remember that. I'm not going to forget this. Have a nice evening. That was one time. But there have been times in my life growing up where I just felt like people weren't listening. I shouldn't have to are you listening to what I said? Did you listen to what I said? I thought about maybe it was my approach. Because sometimes I can be intimidating and try not to be a bully. So I thought maybe I had to reevaluate myself. Maybe it was my deliverance, or they weren't paying attention.
So I really did a lot of work on myself in my tone and how I deliver something. But yeah, there's been, even in school, when I was growing up, again, it's finding that voice. So that's my answer to that. What angers me about stereotypes? Number one, I don't live in a teepee. I can't believe somebody asked that not too long ago. I mean, 2 years ago. Do you
They
partake in,
asked if you lived in a team
2 years ago?
2 years ago. Okay.
And I was on a Zoom call, and I was trying to hide my face because I could see my face in the corner. And then, like I said, I tried to hide my face, but I was just like, I think I raised my eyebrows and Larry took a deep breath and looked down. Number two was, do you partake in peyote? Because, you know, all Native Americans smoke peyote. There's laws and regulations around that. No, I'm not part of the Native American church, but it's a whole big thing. So no, I don't do that. So there are stereotypes within my own culture, that, and even, again, and I not to revert back to this, but we ourselves as Native American people, sometimes we judge other people, other than natives, maybe based on income or education, or maybe it's living off the reservation versus on the reservation. So those are a couple of things bug me. So anyway, I corrected the situation, educated them that, you know, some of those are used for ceremonial purposes. You know, not all Native people live in teepees, we actually live in houses with running water. We cook on stoves and have electricity. I kind of threw it back a little bit, but I was trying to be nice because it was such a ridiculous question. But yeah, there is a purpose for that.
So a time in my life where I felt invisible. So growing up here in Topeka, I did not fit in the Black group or any group, right? Because my parents, we actually came here in 3rd grade. And my father actually worked for the union in Missouri. And so we really had no ties here in town. We lived here in a nice little house on the corner that was built by Habitat. But we had no connections here. And still to this day, I don't have any family but the ones I chose, and they chose me back. But being here, I always knew I had to speak up for myself, right? And so I always spoke up. I would fight a roach, like literally, because I was like, you will not bully me. I will not lean down. But I protested. I was protesting for that juvenile Shawnee County Juvenile Correctional place that got downtown before they ever built it. And everything I said was gonna happen. I was a teenage girl. It's actually happening right now. If we would afford the money. But I moved to South Carolina with my ex-husband. And lo and behold, I see no diversity in the community I live in. And the only time I seen a white body person was when they was owning something or running something, right? I wanted some guacamole and I wanted some, it was a lot of things I wanted that we can get here in Topeka, and they didn't have it. So I was really like going through withdrawals down here. Then I listened to diverse music and they thought I should only listen to Black music. And so they kept calling me Dorothy. But I go to work for a plant, and inside this chicken plant, the boss name was Mr. Randy Joseph. I'm not scared, right? This man comes out on the floor, the plant manager, he's cussing at the staff, right? Calling all kind of name the workers, all kind of names. And I was like, hold on, do he know who I am? Right, nobody knew who I was. I wasn't from there, but I literally look at him and say, sir, I don't know who you're talking to. But first off, you ain't up here tying chickens. And you got all these elderly folks on this line tying chickens, and I'm the one playing catch up for all the chickens. And the women started grabbing me. They was like, shh, they gonna kill you. They gonna kill you. I was like, they gonna kill me in Kansas. We don't play this, right? They're like, they gonna kill you. The black people don't say that here. Just tie the chickens. But, you know, they gave me a different position in the company. They took me off from the chickens. And my boss came to me, that was older me on the line, and he said to me, don't talk to my boss like that. And I said, if you talk to your boss like that, I wouldn't have to talk to a boss like that. But they rewarded me for talking to him like that. I don't know if they were thinking about killing me, y'all, but they rewarded me, all right? So that was a time, thank you, amen, I like you, stereotypes. Come on. First off, Black women, we are strong, right? But we are not superheroes. And I'm tired of people believing that because I'm a Black woman, I can carry everything. I'm in agreement with my girl Tracy Hershey when she says rest resistance. I need all the resistance against people telling me I can rest ever. I take naps now in the daytime. My kid's gone. We taking a nap in the middle of the day. I'm not rushing. I don't think I would ever take a job ever again where I got to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning and out the house. Now I get up, but I don't want to be out the house. And I'm not trying to work in my sleep no more. I'm not doing it no more. I think our culture, because of what was done with our ancestors and the maltreatment of our women and of our bodies, we carry that forward, and it has caused, I'm telling y'all, when I took a position working in racial justice, when I was protesting going through 2020, all the way through, my body feels all that. And grind culture is a lie, let me tell you. It is a whole lie, because when you die after building these people up, after building these companies, after speaking this word, they gonna bury you and walk on by. They not gonna keep checking on your kids. They not gonna make sure the house got paid off. They don't care about nothing about. They don't care because you love the Lord. You can't work in the church 24 hours a day. I'm just telling y'all, Black women, Black bodied women, you can't do everything. Do what you can do, and you enjoy doing it, and leave the rest to whoever want to pick it up.
Yes, ma'am.
I know the question is about invisibility, but I kind of think of the visibility part and how that has been a problem for me. So I'm gonna address it that way, because those are the items that come to mind right now. Being 14 in Miami and being stopped by the police and thrown against the car on the wall, stopped and frisked, coming out from playing basketball. Obviously, I'm not doing anything illegal. So that experience definitely colored my perception of police for a very long time. Or even to be that when I first moved here, within maybe a few months, some guy overheard me talking on the phone, turned around in Spanish and called me a name that I'm not going to repeat here. It's a racist slur. And, he kind of challenged me, but I was one guy, we had 4 guys. And you know what? I'm just going to ignore him. People like, Topeka? Yes, in Topeka. People ask me a question about, people of color can relate to that, but people, a lot of white people ask me a question. Here in Topeka? Yes, here in Topeka. We're being followed around Dillon's by a security guard for several miles. For no reason.
Tell that story.
I told that story because the reason I tell that story because it basically, it's like a karma in the universe. So I go in, it's October, right? So it's kind of chilly, it's not really cold. I'm wearing a hoodie, but I'm aware of it. I'm wearing a hoodie. I'm just gonna take it off just in case. Security guard sees me going to the store, follows me around a little bit. Behind me, a gentleman walks in. You can tell he's homeless or I don't know, looks rough looking. He's white, but you can tell he's having a rough time. He doesn't get followed at all, even though he also looked kind of sketchy to me, right? And he doesn't get followed up. And the security guy keeps following me for 3 hours, 4 hours until I turn around. I'm like, okay, I make eye contact. I had enough of this. He just kind of like gets up and walks away, and then I'm not making this up. I walked to the next aisle, and that guy that also follows putting food or something down his pants. I mean, obviously, look at he did something. I didn't say anything. He was hungry, so I was like, I turned him in. But it felt like poetic justice in a way. The person who didn't follow is the person who stole from you. and the person you're following was just trying to shop for his kids, so that's just one story of many, right? And so that's what I can think of. Sometimes being visible is the problem. And again, I'm very light skinned compared to other people from my culture, right? So I can imagine what they go through. As far as stereotypes go, I would say after 2016, and we know what I'm referring to, it would probably be the term being an invader. You're here to invade. That is a very hurtful stereotype that brings up, ideas of an enemy, not a person. And a different stereotype also that I kind of make a joke about it, and I said, children is immigrant. You're too lazy to get a job, but you're also seeing a job at the same time. So which one is it? Am I stealing jobs or am I too lazy to get a job? Right? So that's kind of like it's a dichotomy that doesn't make sense to me. So that's what I get comes to mind right now.
Feeling invisible. I think this happens to not just minorities, but women in meetings when you raise a point and they gloss over it, and then somebody takes that same point, but because they're packaged in a certain party, it's the most brilliant idea ever said. And you're like, that's my idea.
Just what I just said.
Yeah, that's, so it's one thing to steal my idea of my publication, but it's another to steal it when I'm sitting there fresh and body right in front of you. But yeah, those moments you feel invisible. So when that happens in a meeting to somebody, I'm always quick to point out, hey, that is what so-and-so just said. As I'm always quick to echo and reinforce it so that, if somebody else that don't feel that way. Yeah. Then the stereotype, oh my God, there are many, I'm reading a book now by Depot. And he talks about the title of the book is actually Africa is not a country. And he talks about the danger of denying a whole race the right to identity. And he said, I'm not a generic African, I'm a Nigerian. And he goes on to define what being a Nigerian is. And why being a Nigerian is not being an African, It's a sub part of the continent, but really is a distinct entity. And he does a brilliant job of talking about defining what Africa is and is not, and how Africa can intervene with the different countries, the over 2,000 languages spoken, the different cultures, the struggle and partition of Africa, the ongoing neo-colonialism that is going on and all that thing. So for me, to pick one stereotype, I just wanted to try, so I feel like not even walking that path. There is one content development TikTok, a young lady, and she uses sarcasm to really deliver or respond to the stereotypes, like do you have electricity in Africa? Do you have calls? So do you have this and that? And she always says, oh no, we don't have that. We summon the spirits of the ancestors when we want to come our head. And we have to chop our heads. And so she does that, and I love watching her every day or every time I'm feeling low, it's coming onto the channel. And that's what I'm saying. We now have voices to tell our stories. So to the extent that we are telling our stories, I feel we're responsible to tell our stories. We must have our voices out there. In terms of people understanding and overcoming the stereotypes, I still, were you awake 2023? People still ask me, how did you get here? Oh, now I want to speak of my sisters and just right.
Right, can we give our panelists a We've heard some powerful comments on tonight and even some calls to action. So we have about 10 minutes for any questions that you may have. Then we're going to come back around and see if any of the panelists have a final word that they would like to share. And then we're going to let Mr. Herman share what he would like to say. So Glenda has a mic. If you have a question, you can come to her.
Did you have a question?
Yeah,
We did.
I do have a question about Cuba. I saw something on film about what's going on right now, rioting in Cuba. The people are tired of being treated the way they're wanting change. I was wondering about that, what we can do here in America to support that civil unrest that's pretty serious going on in Cuba right now.
Thank you. It's something that's happened in a very long time. So in a way, it's unprecedented. So the problem is because it's such a, I think in Cuba, it's a little bit like it's North Korea, because it's very self-contained. There's no, you don't have any borders, it's just an island Korean. You can't really leave unless you try to go legally, and that's very dangerous. You probably drown or get killed. So it's hard to get help directly to people that way. There are churches who are sent so you can donate to a church or you can volunteer to go to an organization like that. But because it's just a controlled environment where even just speaking out loud against the government can get you arrested. So the fact that those young people are going on the streets, especially young people, are doing this work that's important. A lot of them get sentenced about 20 years in prison for protesting. So when you see that happen to your neighbor, well, you don't want to go out to protest because who's going to help you? Nobody can go. There's no borders, nothing. It's just you're there. So unless you leave, you're stuck. So that's kind of hard. And I appreciate the question. I think number one, raising awareness is important. When the riots were happening last summer, I wanted people across the U.S. who were having like demonstrations support of the Cuban people, and I had one here in Topeka, and it was just me and two friends. So, but and I put it on social media, and I alerted the media. It was me and two friends, right? And I still did that. I still did it for 2 hours. I didn't care if people were honking, and I raised awareness slightly. And I do think people on social media, maybe saw my video later and spread the word about this happening. People are speaking out, people are going to speak. So awareness is important, number one. And two, there are organizations like that do send aid and support to the Cuban people as far as change in government. That's really hard to do over here. And it's only going to happen with time and more people are aware of that. Thank you for the question.
Hi. Thank you all for being here and sharing. I know it's listening to you talk, it's so personal, and I'm so grateful to be able to hear what you have to say. I guess my question, Chet, kind of is two parts. One is, as having lived different places, what do you see as Topeka's like greatest challenges and strengths? But also as a 45-year-old white woman in Topeka, how like generally can I approach allyship and being helpful and making sure that I can use the privilege that I have to help other people do a good job.
So, first off, I love values, but I need abolitionists. I need somebody that's willing to leave their body against the pole as I climb to the top to make sure that they don't stop me, right? And so doing the work I watched in 2020, where the 2021, where I had a lot of allies that were surrounded, right, and their bodies were there. But their bodies, they tried to surround us and put themselves in a position. And they tried to identify with the pain, but they did not allow us to have voice about our pain, right? And so I need you to be able to lean in. I need you to not leave the room when it get real heated and the messages come through. But I don't need you to put yourself in a place where you're being attacked and I can't cover you. Because I'm a protector, so I'm gonna wanna cover you, right? My ancestors have been taught, so it's in my DNA that I gotta cover you. Because I was taught you were fragile, but I'm not. And so I don't need you to be like I was in the UK when a young lady, and it still kind of gets to me. I walk into a place with a group of Black-bodied women. They're called Afro-Caribbean. And I walk in and there's one white person. She was the loudest thing. What she didn't know is I gotta get back to the United States. I got a whole thing. And you're ready to shake something. And I heard because he thought when I walked in here fully clothed from top to bottom, I had on more clothes than I got now. And he called me a prostitutes. And it was okay. He said it publicly in a public place. And he wasn't drunk. And no man stood up and said that. No Black body, white body, nobody stood up and said that. Are you hearing me? And in a room like that, when you see those things happen, it's time that somebody speaks up. I shouldn't have to, because when I speak up, I'm called the angry Black woman. And when I speak up, I may lose my life that day, or my kids may be attacked that day when I speak up. But why was it right for him to ask me, was I a prostitute, or ask a group of women were we there ready to do prostitution? We just met each other. And we were trying to sit down and have a conversation in a place that was a landmark in the nation. But when she spoke up and I told her to quiet down, she kept going. And I had to literally say to her, I could die and not get back home to my kids off of your voice, and you never be arrested. She had not thought about it. But I gotta get home. So it's a time to speak up and it's a time to evaluate. You gotta have a learned mouth. You know how to speak a word. But I'm not saying you, but the who in the highway, in the running it, watch how you run through. Because you may be putting somebody's life in jeopardy. I'm just saying, I need abolitionists in this season of my life. For us to actually check all the things we talked about today, it's going to take an abolitionist movement. Not abolitionists that's actually making every tool that they're using to enslave people. Because I visited places where they were doing it. I don't need two-faced people or two-headed people. I need somebody that's one-minded and understand I'm all
That was a really good question that you brought up. Just a quick suggestion. So most of you are your parents or grandparents or aunts and uncles in the room. So when your kids are in school, you have a plethora of resources here. So, we're getting October to September, it's National Hispanic Month. So in the schools, we bring some people in. Here, maybe some books, we do that at the VA, we celebrate those. When you look at those, then you go into September September 15th to October 15th, and then you go into November, that's National Native American Heritage Month. And these are either by public law or either by executive orders. And so, reach out to some people. That's what you can do in the community and schools. Then you go into December, January, March, June, Winter History Month. So, and just encourage, reach out and get some people in there. That's something small, but it will really have an impact on the kids that are in school. And advocating, there's groups there, there's different causes, and I just think just being here today is impactful, and it says a lot about your character, that you want to learn, and you want to have a better understanding.
We have time for one more question.
First of all, I want to thank the panel. I was late, but I got what I needed. I can relate and understand. My small observation, but yet still a question, and hopefully. I want the people that I had a fear factor coming up as a child, of color, systematically. And as I got older, I come to find out that fear factor was just a myth. And I was taught as a kid coming up by my parents, I had both. And my main thing is just systematically, I know we're not gonna know whether to manage, we can just do what we can that we're allowed to do, sometimes go the extra mile. But my main thing is the youth, the kids. When do we start besides just individually, as parents, uncles, aunties, grandmas, grandpas, and systematically all from Arkansas. And you probably already know they're trying to keep Black history out of the schools in Arkansas.
Oh, I thought that was Florida.
And I'm in Topeka, I've been going on 5 years, and it's just a lot of things. I don't know what's going on, and I'm glad I came tonight. My coworker said, come tonight. I said, okay, because I don't like putting on ties. Other than that, I'm glad that I came. And anybody on the panel, any suggestions about helping the youth, not just Black, but the youth in Topeka understand culturally and some things they can do, because mentally, it's going to take a toll whether they know it or not.
So I'll give you a couple. One is, I had established a curriculum to talk, for parents to be able to talk to their children about racism. The first part of talking to your children about racism is not just talking to your children about racism. The first part is dealing with the intro, you becoming aware of your belief system, becoming aware of your biases, right? Because when your children begin to ask questions, it'll be easy for you to silence it. When really the question is always a teachable moment, right? And so having conscious conversations, I am a restorative practitioner, so I do a lot of circle work. Currently right now with the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice, I have a partnership with the Meditative and Martial Arts School, Mr. Steve Twimbo. We do peaceful schools, restorative leadership. So we teach the social emotional skills, right? That social emotional awareness, and if kids do not understand who they are and where they come from, it's easy to get trapped in the identity of what someone else tells you are. If children do not understand the power of their voice, again, it's easy to get trapped in someone else's identity. So in these spaces, we have courageous conversations. There's curriculum that I go over, but I challenge them and I push them to connect to each other. The other part is we got grown folk, I guess I'm the bridge, right? My age range. But children have to be given the opportunity of how to serve in the community. If they don't know their value to the community, because we want to say let children be children, but most of these things that we observe that we can enjoy were made in the age range we still call them children. And so we want them to be grown after the creativity is gone. And they don't know their value and connection to the community. And so it's full circle to go around. Voice, the value, the stories. They need to know their story, his story, her story. They need to know the story, and they need to know that the history books was a compilation of stories that were put together that people agreed that would work. And so we have to tell them the in-between truths. And I'm done.
Yeah, so I'll speak to your question, and my name is Michael Case, and I am a school teacher, I teach at Robinson Middle School. Several years ago, I taught at Highland Park High School, and one of the things that I taught was African American history. So I taught African American history for a number of years at the high school level. Now I'm teaching African American history at the middle school level. We, a few years ago, Topeka schools really understood and identified that our school children were not getting a deep understanding of culture. So we have a generation right now that has grown up and doesn't understand who they are. So like you were saying, if people don't understand who they are, then they're going to continue to forget their history. They're going to continue to believe the stories that have been told about them. And so I recently, last week, a few weeks ago, I was in Dallas, Texas, and we introduced Black History 365 a few years ago at the high school level. And I taught from the book. And one of the things that Black History 365 does, it really provides a current, but also an approach that students can identify. It really goes all the way back to the beginning, Africa, right? Because last time I checked, we all came from Africa. So it talks about the triumphant events that took place, and then we look at the Middle Passage. And then, of course, we look at slavery. So Topeka just introduced and is really evaluating if we're going to go into the middle schools. I think where we are. So we have curriculum for the middle schools. We have curriculum for the elementary schools. And so these are some things that have been happening. A lot of people don't know about those things. And so when we say that our students aren't getting the full story, yeah, you're correct. And we're identifying that and we're moving forward. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying that we're definitely moving in the right direction.
Thank you all for your great questions. And, okay, we're going to give you an opportunity for each of you to have a closing comment. And so we'll do that at this time. As we transition to that, and then we're going to release you all so that Mr. Herman can come and share. I just wanted to touch on something Regina said about allies. And it's important, if you choose to be an ally for a homogeneous racial group, that you make sure you clearly understand your role as an ally. An ally who is not part of that group cannot be the spokesperson for that group. An ally has to be the supporter. You can be the one that's standing behind their back saying, I'm holding you up, you go for it, I'm praying for you, I'm aligned with you, but not the individual who will step out and speak on behalf of that group. So just think about that. Should you choose to become an ally, think about what your true role is, because what you'll find in many of our cultures, we're very passive if it appears someone who's of a different culture wants to jump in and take over. But what we do, we'll let them go ahead and get out there and talk, but we'll start sliding to the background. And before you know it, they're out there talking by themselves. So just wanted to share that. We're going to allow each of the panelists about 1 minute to share your closing comments, and then we will release you. Thank you again so much. We'll begin down here with Dr. Juma.
Thank you guys for affording me this opportunity to come and share with you. I really appreciate a forum like this. And it helps us reflect as a community where we are, where we've been, and where we want to go. The 70th anniversary of Brown versus Board is a great opportunity. One of the things that we'll be doing in May is we have an international conference of African Academy of Business Development. We'll have scholars from all over the world coming to our city for that conference. It's a 4-5-day conference, and so I'm just so happy that I was part of this panel. which I believe is a fast activity, right? So to be part of it, it has been wonderful. I'm blessed to have this great panelists with us. We've been able to cover quite a bit of diverse ground. So thank you, guys.
I echo the same, sentiments. I'm glad to be asked to be here, and I learned so much listening to all of you speak. I really have. I think I agree with Regina's words about allyship and the question. I think moving from allyship, maybe abolitionist, and I'll say further step to an accomplice. An ally stands by, an accomplice stands in, right? So maybe your skin in the game, be an accomplice in the scheme of changing things and being the solution. So yeah, just thank you all for being here.
It's one on your name. Oh.
Yes, ma'am. So I want to say it's an honor to be in space to hold space with greatness anytime I'm before you. It's always an honor. I love that they're on the move and bridging those gaps, and filling the bridge up under the bridge in. And so, I think this is a great season for us to do it as a city. But as a nation, I know we can rise even more to the occasion. And so again, I am honored and I curtsy to all of you panelists and participants.
That was wonderful.
She was amazing.
She was amazing. You feel my love. I'm just sitting here just in awe of all the candidates. First of all, I'd like to thank Ms. Washington for inviting me and Cheryl Hall. I really appreciate that. I believe that everybody is here. You're right where you're supposed to be right here, right now at this time. You're here collecting all this information and taking it back into your own families and communities. I love what the gentleman said here. My daughter is a school teacher in the city, and I feel like the teachers like this, you're really making the difference. And Hannah, she's adopted, and she teaches at Amy Pearson at DCK. And just her initiatives in the last 6 years, she's had students come back that, they're like, you really made an impact. I'm seeing things from a different perspective. And just that helps shaping those little minds. And I think it's amazing. So take what you learned from everybody. We are a resource as well as this organization here. And then, and I'm always here and always available. If there's anything Native American related, I have a lot of knowledgeable and resources. I'm not the only, if I get invited back, I have a team of people that I can reach out. Some people are from the city, Native American people. Some people are from the country. Some people worked on the reservation. They're going to need to be a person of another tribe. So we are more than willing to come out to your organization and speak. And if you have any questions, my biggest thing is, if you have a question and you're not sure, hey, guess what? It's okay to ask.
Let's give our panelists
You can continue to sit up here if you like. You can be excused to get some refreshments if you like. That's up to you. We want your market calendars, though. We have 2 events coming up in the month of October. We will be hosting a prayer breakfast at Washburn University in the Alumni Center, and it will be Reverend, okay. Yeah, I haven't had no coffee tonight. But it's a pastor from Chicago, and Monique Pittman Louie that's her pastor, so it's gonna be wonderful. It'll be October 28th, and then there'll be some other events as well. But right now, while we think of names and dates, we're gonna turn over to Mr. Herman to share a little bit about his event.
So next month, so thank you all for coming. I'll turn it over to Mr. Herman. But next month, we're going to have a roundtable with gentlemen in the community to talk about after the Million Man March, what next? Okay, so if you remember the energy we had around the Young Man March, everything and everybody was so excited, and we were gonna build this mountain, we were gonna do things differently. We were gonna educate and inform and all of those kinds of things. Well, kind of want to sleep on that. And we can blame it on COVID if we like, that's okay. But we're gonna talk about after the Million Man March, what's our role and our responsibilities as Black men of this community. So you can come as a Black woman because you're gonna play a role in it too. But please, to all the Black men in this community, that we're having a conversation about after the Million Man March. What's my role? What am I supposed to be doing? How am I supposed to build a future legal legacy for the individuals, for the kids that I'm responsible for? Because, we're all responsible for those children. It doesn't matter if the child is Black, white, blue, or green, it's our responsibility. So after the Million Man March is next month. So Bro and I are working on that, but we want you to be the messengers to get the word out, and that's what we're going to be talking about. We'll give you the date, time, we will be right here. And Brown versus Board has been so gracious in allowing us to have all these conversations in this building if we'd like to. So bring along some folks, because we really got to rebuild this community in a lot of instances. And so we can't do it alone, we do need your help. We need y'all to pull a man, all you ladies, pull a man with you. Bring him next month, see what we can do, okay? Yeah, so if you can, after the Million Man March. The other thing I want to do is I want to invite you on the 17th to, this month, August, is Black Business Month, right? So I am hosting a Black Business Celebration over at the 6th Avenue Ballroom, over at Lenore Williams' place, from 5:30 to 7:30 next Thursday night. So I'd like to invite you all to come on over. Let's celebrate the businesses and those of past, present, and the future. Good to see you there. Come on up.
Thank you. I want to share a new tool that just went live this weekend to help, to help Black people find the holes in your history, our history. During slavery, families were split up as children were sold, parents were sold. And after the Civil War, some of those people began putting ads in newspapers looking for their family members. This has been overlooked tremendously. And lately there's an organization that's gone online, and the website is called informationwanted.org. And they have an archive of nearly 5,000 of these ads on the internet of people looking for their family. And they're taking those ads, and I was responding to this partly because I'm white on the outside, but not on the inside. I'm not responsible for that, but I am responsible for none of my grandchildren being white. But I got brown, dark brown, and slightly yellow. And what this organization is doing is taking those ads and letting people write stories to make them real. And this is my story about Aunt Cynthia in Lawrence, Kansas, who went to the newspaper and wanted to find her daughters that she had not seen since they were sold off before the Civil War. And I was able to find out some information about her owner, and she had been part of the plan. Her owner had moved his plantation from Virginia to Missouri, and they walked, I'm sure, because they didn't have no trains and they didn't have no shoes. So they walked from Virginia, that's 1,000 miles. And her children were sold from the steps of the courthouse in Independence, Missouri. And somebody, I'm not sure how, did she learn who bought them? So I was able to use Find a Grave, and I found out information about her owner. That's how I learned about the plantation moving. I tried to find her daughters, but I couldn't. One of them was named Virgin Mary, and I went in to find a grave, and there's over a dozen women named Virgin Mary. I don't know who their last name was. I tried to find their use their owner's last name, and that didn't help me. But I could tell what her point of view was, and what she felt like, or what she would have felt like if my kids had been taken away. Because one of mine was. My oldest grandson last summer, because of the racism in this country, killed himself. Because there's nothing I could do. I'm too far away. Anyway. So I wanted to share this. These stories are there. There's 3 stories so far. They're put in PDFs so you can download them, so that places, teachers and parents in places where they can't get this stuff, they can go direct to the internet. And it's just a little 4-page story, each one of them illustrated. And informationwanted.org is the name of it. I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
That's great information. Finally, we're gonna let you go home, but I wanted to let you know that we will be celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month on October 10th. October 10th. So stay tuned. I'll send you out the information. We're gonna celebrate for an entire month. That's the date that we selected to celebrate it. So we'll be celebrating September to October 15th. October 10th is the date that we selected to celebrate Hispanic Heritage. So we'll see you there. Thank you all for coming.
I forgot one thing. I'm gonna take this away. Somebody wants this, because I can turn it over and go to see.
Thank you all for coming. Have a good evening.
Okay, so most of you guys know, so I'm a genealogist, so I'm right there with you. I think that there's some other cool stuff that's been going on. They're looking for 10 million names and another story. But if you're looking for your family, check me out at the library. Anyway, that's one thing. The other thing is, I was happy to hear all of our panelists and everybody talk about their stories, because one of the things that my group is working on is our city telling Black stories. So we're wanting to make sure that our stories are told from first person perspective. And so I have a little handout here for you. And we do have, we're going to have an exhibit coming up in February through May of next year, where we'll be displaying our stories. And so if you would like to contribute, you can. I've got the full thing and you can contact us. But what we're going to do next week and there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's wonderful. Next week on